Hello everybody, I want to do a quick video on web browsers and the information they expose through JavaScript and other technologies that can affect your privacy, maybe more than you think. I know a number of people believe that, hey, you know what, if I'm not doing anything illegal, I have nothing in my browsing history that I wouldn't show my mother, I don't really have a problem, I don't really care. But when you go to websites and you sign up for social media accounts, you're often accepting terms of service that basically or you're giving them all your data and they can do whatever they want with it. It may not be immediately obvious all the stuff they can collect. So I'm going to show a couple of different web browsers here and some different tools that you can use to check your own privacy settings in whatever browser you use. They're all very similar. And then make your own determination as to what you want to do. I'm not saying to do one thing or another. I just want you to understand what's being tracked and then allow you to make decisions. The first browser we're going to look at is Google Chrome. I have this here and I'm running it on my Linux computer. I have two different profiles set right now in Google Chrome. I have my regular profile. I also have one that's a specific one for this test, but I'm also using it for a certification exam I'm taking. This particular certification exam will be done on my personal computer, so I have to have a really aggressive plugin that allows the company that administers the exam to record everything I do, and basically it's wide open. And so I had to allow third-party cookies, which can be used to track you from site to site. I also have to allow them to record my screen. So what I did is I created a new profile in Chrome. You can go down here to other people, and the reason I think Chrome has this is there could be multiple people who share a single computer, and therefore they might want their own set of bookmarks, they want their own set of cookies, they want their own settings and such. So I'm using I have a profile, and the profile again is really wide open. So I've run a tool from Electronic Frontier Foundation called Cover Your Tracks, and based on the results of this particular privacy checking tool, I'm not protected against tracking, which I kind of know that. And my browser has a unique fingerprint. So the fingerprint is very important to understand. It used to be a cookie could identify you, maybe an IP address, but people would delete their cookies, and an IP address, there could be multiple people sharing the same IP address, like in the same house or the same company. A lot of times in a company, everyone exits to the internet through one IP address, so that's not really the only, it can differentiate you, but it can't individually differentiate you that much. It depends, I guess. So fingerprinting, it uses a number of different techniques in order to build a profile about you. And if you run this tool, it can show you that for this particular instance of my browser, I have unique among roughly 329,000 people that they've tested. There's a number of bits of identifying information. And if we scroll down a bit here, we can look that it knows that I'm running Google Chrome, right? It knows that. It kind of also knows I'm on a Linux machine. It has my different plugins that my browser has, so it knows that, it reports that. And only 1 in 22 browsers have this, right? So it's not all that unique, right? I'm still pretty good there. Time zone is Central Time Zone. It knows my screen resolution, and why would a site need to do this? There's a good reason for this, and the good reason is, hey, if you're on a phone, right, maybe show you a website version that's optimized for a smaller device, such as a phone. If you have 1920 by 1080, which is very, very common, 1 in 5 browsers have this. This is a very, very common screen size for desktop computers. Then maybe show me a desktop one. How it can be used poorly, or maybe nefariously, is let's suppose you had a really big resolution. Someone could say, wow, he or she has a really big monitor, and those are very expensive right now. Let's charge them more money, because if they have such a big monitor, they must have enough money to use for discretionary purposes. The next piece, if we roll down here, is system fonts. Each operating system comes with a standard set of fonts. But what often happens is I'm on Linux, and I added a few additional fonts that weren't part of the standard distribution. By adding those additional fonts, I've now made my collection of fonts more unique. If you install Adobe Creative Cloud, there could be additional fonts and windows that are installed. If you hired someone to do a resume for you or a particular document, sometimes these designers will use a special font that they like, and you either have to go purchase that font, or maybe there's an open source equivalent, and now you have another font in your machine. So now you have a unique font footprint, I guess. And look at this. This is far more identifying for me as 1 in 182,000. Excuse me, 1 in 18,000. So that's more. It's more unique than what we've seen so far. Cookies are enabled. Yep, I need that for that test. This is where they get you right here. Is this canvas fingerprint? You can read more about this. But in HTML5, there's a way for them to draw a rectangle or square on your web browser. You can't see it. It's probably in a hidden frame. And based on a number of different factors, your computer hardware, your video card, your chipset, your driver, all that, now you have a very unique canvas fingerprint. This is really what a lot of websites are using now to identify you, is this fingerprint. And this is really where I'm differentiating myself from everyone else right here. And yes, partly this is my fault, because I built a computer and I wanted a certain processor, which I couldn't get, so I got the next model down. But it's relatively common processor for a desk. Well, maybe not. Right? It's AMD's 3800 XT 8 core. Right? It's not. Yeah, it's kind of off the shelf. It's not really that niche. But my video card is an AMD chipset 5600 XT, which is just one of many different chipsets for video cards. But a combination of that and my RAM and all these other items help contribute to this particular fingerprint and other fingerprints. It's the same thing with here, WebGL. All kind of related to the same thing, right? There's my card, right? AMD, I just mentioned that. It knows I'm on Arch Linux, so there's all these different versions of Linux or distributions, right? There's Red Hat, there's Debian, there's Ubuntu. Arch Linux is just one of those, right? But that further isolates me from, or differentiates me between people who use Windows and people who use Mac. And as differentiated as I am, right, we also have an iPad in the house, and I ran some of these tests on the iPad, and you think an iPad is pretty common, right? A lot of people have iPads, and we have a relatively inexpensive model of the iPad, so there should be many of them, but regardless, there was still a lot of a unique fingerprint on that device also. So you can scroll down, language, platform, all these different things here. You can go to the Cover Your Tracks website and look at this yourself, and just determine what you need. There are plugins where you can change your user agent, so you can say, hey, if I'm on Linux, make it look like my browser is a Windows 7 IE 10, right? There's ways you can do that, but the individual set of, or the collection of items which create your fingerprint would be such that that combination would really never exist in real life, and so therefore you're further differentiated yourself when you were trying to anonymize yourself. So you got to be very careful there. Another website you can look at is browserleaks.com, and this gives very similar type information. It shows you your IP address, and I'm using a VPN right now, so this is not my real IP address. This is the IP address that I am coming out of my VPN, and it says it's in Plano, Texas. And it's kind of funny, there's an ad for a VPN in this tool, right? So it's kind of funny, right? I'm already kind of being tracked. I'm getting an ad for a VPN inside a tool that's talking about VPN. And then if we jump back to this WebRTC leak test, this is important because if you are on a VPN, your real IP address can be leaked. So you're trying to hide your real IP, by going through a VPN, but the WebRTC can actually show that. Now with the particular VPN service that I'm using, it helps protect against the RTC leaks. So that's a feature of this particular VPN, and then DNS leakage too. So let's go back a bit here on this one. Again, canvas fingerprinting, we just talked about that, but here it says my uniqueness is 99.59, right? And if you have 59's reliability in your data center, you're doing really good, but you probably don't want 59's uniqueness on the web, right? So 1 out of every like 250,000 people have a signature similar to mine. So I'm pretty unique here. And a little bit of information about that image that it created right here. This is kind of an example of that canvas image it created. We bump back a bit here if there's anything else. Font, right? We talked about fonts, right? And geolocation, this one here, it actually gives an address, Farm to Market Road, 1770. And again, this is, who knows really where this is, because this particular one says accuracy of 440 miles. So that's really not as, yeah, wow. I didn't know Santa Fe was 444 miles from here. Okay. And then let's get out of this one. Let's go to device info. Deviceinfo.me is another website, and don't use the back button. The back button doesn't actually work within the site. It brings you back to your previous page. You can look and say, who am I logged in as? And it knows, right? My browser is letting people know that I'm logged into a Google account and a YouTube account. Maybe I don't want people to know that, right? It's no one's business. And there are only 2 entries in my browsing history because I just created this profile, right? So there's not a whole lot in here. But how can this be used? If you have only 2 entries, a particular website that's looking at gaining information and creating a profile on you and selling data about you, if you only have 2 entries in your profile, in your history, it knows that you've either brand new user, unlikely, or you've maybe cleaned out cookies. And so use a different way to gain data and gain knowledge about you. If you have 22,000 entries in history, then hey, you know what? Your browsing history and your cookies are really good for a data collection. Let's harvest them the best we can. We scroll back up here. I have it zoomed in just a little bit so we can see it in the video. Whether I have Bluetooth, again, it talks about my browser plugins, the window size, the canvas. We talked about the canvas, right? Fingerprinting is allowed. User agent, it knows the same thing. This is very, oh, I hit the back button. I'm just used to that, I guess. You scroll back up again here. Whether I have a webcam, why would they want to know if you have a webcam? Maybe they want to turn it on. I hope not. I've heard of all sorts of things happening with webcams. Again, you can go to these sites and take a look. Fingerprinting resistance. None detected. So this particular tool will know if I'm trying to resist fingerprinting, right? If I'm trying to resist fingerprinting, then, you know, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to remain private, I guess, in today's age? So let's go to something different. Let's go to another browser called Brave. Brave is a web browser which is free, and it prides itself on privacy. If we go to where's our fingerprint thing here? Let's go to it right here. A lot of this information is the same, but as far as what the tools are doing, the same 3 tools are pulled up in both. But this one here shows that fingerprint resistance is detected, so it knows that we're trying to detect the fingerprints. And here it's now, this one kind of gives an actual address, 4543 Staten Island Court in Plano as my location. And I know where Preston Road is. So this is, again, this is not me, this is a VPN that I'm using. And then cover your tracks. It shows, and this is the tool from Electronic Frontier Foundation. It says I have a randomized fingerprint. And so what that's really doing is every time I either open a site, or I don't know exactly how often it changes, but in this particular browser, my fingerprint is always changing. So yes, I have a unique fingerprint here, but every time I go someplace, it's changing my fingerprint. And so that's how that works. And then the third browser is Tor. So Tor is from Electronic Frontier Foundation, and it's designed to be a really private browser, and they go out of their way to make it private. And even though I'm connected into a VPN, this goes through 3 additional hops. So I think earlier when I prepared all this, it was saying that I was in Sweden. I have to go find where that is for the geolocation. But it redirected me to, the 3 different hops. A lot of them are in Europe, and it popped me out this time in Sweden. So that's what we got here. Yeah, time zone is 0 UTC. So it's, I'm not going to go dig through it, but I have it there. And then, again, these types of things here, IP address. Let's go to geolocation, see where it says here. It does not support geolocation, so this particular tool is trying to get that from the browser. The browser is not giving it. So these are 3 different browsers you can think about. You can look at the settings. There's all sorts of YouTube videos on this to go and web pages to talk more about it. The challenge that you'll have is the more you go into this, the deeper you go to make it more private, the less things work. I have an online brokerage account for my retirement, and I have one of my browsers had a fingerprint blocker, and I could log into the website, but I couldn't do anything. Like, none of the script would work. And then if you were to go to, I don't know, let's try to go to Instagram. If we go to my Instagram, it won't even show me anything, right? If because I am blocking everything through either the settings in the browser, or I'm going through a VPN, and Instagram knows that I'm going through a VPN, right? These are not secret IP addresses. They're published everywhere, or they have tools to check this. If you were to go to my Instagram.com/ThomasJSweet by just on a regular phone or a web browser without all this additional tracking disabled, it would pull up my account. Now, you could probably scroll and see 15 pictures before 20, whatever it is, before it then prompts you to log in. But right now, because the product, I'm hiding myself, right? It won't even let me see anything. But if I open a browser that was wide open, it would do that. Actually, let me try that. Let me go to Chrome and see if this works. So this is Brave. Let's go to Chrome and see what happens. I bet you it still won't work because I'm coming through the VPN, so this isn't going to work. Yeah, but if I had disconnected from the VPN, I could still actually see a small page of my Instagram with 15 or 20 pictures. So those are some of the things to think about. And again, people say, if I'm not breaking the law, what do I care? Well, let's say you have a bed, and the bed is tracking all your sleep data. If it's tracking your sleep data, and it knows when you're sleeping well, it knows when you're not sleeping well. And then all of a sudden you start getting ads for like marriage counseling. It's like, well, why am I getting targeted ads for marriage counseling? What are they learning from my sleeping habits, for example? Or you have fitness trackers, and it's tracking the steps, it's tracking your heart rate, all that. And then insurance companies might be buying that information. And then, your rates could potentially be affected by, that little piece of data that you freely gave away to everyone, who then gave it away and sold it and made a profit off of it, and you got nothing except a higher insurance bill or denied insurance, who knows. And then, so it's up to you. There are people who are really, really, really into this and privacy, and there's also a lot of people who just will click on any license terms they see without really reading it or understanding how it's being used. So I'm not saying to do one thing or another. All I'm trying to do is show you that there are options here on privacy and by browsers. I want you to understand a little bit about how it works and then make your own decisions. I think privacy is going to be more and more important in the future, right? I mean, data really is the biggest asset when you start looking at knowing what people buy, who they're friends with, what news sources they use. People have built profiles on you. Maybe not, yes, they built them on you personally. How closely they're identifying them to you, I don't know, right? Maybe they're just identifying it as user 2296664, and this person likes these websites and sleeps this much and consistently buys X number of dollars of discretionary goods each month, right? And using that for advertising. So, or if you want to run for a political office one day, I'm sure you'll find out exactly more about your browsing history and where you've been than maybe you care to know. So that's it. Please comment below if you have opinions. Thanks. Bye.